okay, the universe is continually pummeling us with synchronicities and signs and magic and miracles, and like, are we actually, like, did we notice those today? Or are we just, blindly like on our phones? And then connection with so the signs and the synchronicities, which are continuous, and then just the vibration of nature, which helps us. I don't even know how nature does it, but it sure does. It just, everything comes into wholeness when we're in that space.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Ching, and I have an incredible, intuitive guide, teacher, sort of all things spiritual in every sense of the word. Sara Wiseman, how are you?
Welcome. Very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
I'm very, very excited. Very excited to have you here. And each day is sort of like another day, another realization about how profound. There are so many ways up the mountain. Yeah. And I just love to realize other people's perception of their reality and how they acquire their level of consciousness. And that's really why this podcast exists, period.
Nice.
So perhaps maybe you could share a little bit more of your backstory as to how we got to this place right here today.
Yeah, thank you. My backstory, I had a pretty normal Western United States background where there was sort of this generalized Christianity and then some Catholic thrown in for a while. And I must say that I was immediately my family was not into any of that. It was just sort of in the culture, but I was deeply drawn to all of that from a really small age. And from the time I could read, I was checking out books at the library, but they weren't just your normal, I don't know, Nancy Drew fiction or, whatever. They were usually spiritual texts. And I would check them all out. And I didn't understand them, but I would just sort of turn the pages and sort of think, like, what was I thinking? One day I will know how to crack this code. So that went on, and but then I had in 2000 I had a very intensive sort of semi near-death experience that sort of cracked it all open for me. And I was on a plane. The plane lost the oxygen. We're all going to die, but we didn't die. But something in me dramatically shifted from that point. And from that point, actually, my psychic gifts, which had been there all along, now that I look back, but they had been pretty under the covers or heavily, wrapped up tightly, and they just opened spontaneously. And, then there's this time of kind of this dark wandering, being lost. All of previous reality is ripped away, and you're sort of wandering in this new place and kind of taking the next decades to sort of figure out, well, what is it all about now that I have this new understanding? So that is sort of the general idea of what happened to me.
Wow. So it's interesting. I've been in the field of energy, frequency, vibration, spirituality, teaching ancient Taoist practices for over 30 years now. It's a journey that is sort of constantly a moment, another epiphany, another awakening, another realization that there's something greater out there. It's never, ever a moment that I don't go, wow, okay. Yeah. I may have seen this before, but it's like I've seen it for the first time. And you speak on your intuition. Do you channel specifically, or is it more a guidance within your internal truth that gives you that realization, or is it more like a very dramatic sort of like, I'm having this information passing through me as a vehicle? Please tell us more about how you perceive it.
Yeah, I am a channel, absolutely. And I would say at the beginning it was quite dramatic. And now it is as simple as just sort of sitting down and either if I'm going to be just maybe receiving messages more personally, they just arrive through in meditation. And if I'm doing multiple times, I've had large amounts of what I would call spiritual or metaphysical teachings come through in a very large section, as in books. And that will be a longer process where I'll sit down and go into trance, and the writing just sort of flows out. And I wish I could say I could control that or I have that on command, but that is not the case. It seems to be every 4 years or more that will sort of, I don't know, start to build. And I'm actually in the middle of that at the moment, which is quite exciting. I've been waiting for a long time to see if it would happen again, but and it's usually, currently, I think what I'm receiving is about almost like the way this is the languaging I would use, the universe rearranges itself depending on our consciousness level. So if we're at a lower beginner level of awareness or still kind of asleep, we'll have one sort of reality. And as we open and expand, dropping whatever baggage and ego that we might be able to let go of, then our understanding starts to change too, and our reality starts to change. So it's interesting. It's an interesting concept.
That was so interesting. I mean, in my opinion, there are no coincidences. But I spoke with someone earlier today on another podcast episode I was doing, and they were very in tune with auto writing or auto.
Automatic writing.
There you go. There you go. It's for me. Being the sort of nature of my position over this natural born life over 30 years, I started with the seed of, the path of the Taoist priest, but it sort of arose into everything in a blanket sort of like realization, teaching people clairvoyance, senses, psychics, mediumship, channeling, healing, blah, 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 all of the above. So it kind of just goes, I kind of just coin it to be sort of a sensory perception. Yeah. And you tend to just acquire these things through your own journey, and everyone has their own version of what that is. I would say that there's a million ways to go up the mountain. There is no right or wrong way, which a lot of people get very caught up in the humanist component. They don't realize they're really overshadowing themselves with that, as opposed to just allowing the freedom of this incredible divination, this divine sense of knowing the universe, God, Buddha, Tao, whatever you refine it as. And it's kind of really exciting to every day hear a new story about how people are able to attune to that frequency. It's like information. I think more commonly, I haven't really seen, I've spent many, many decades teaching people all sort of like ancient rituals within Taoism that are more internal alchemy practices, magic of that type of nature, which magic in of itself, if people don't understand what that is from the audience perspective, is more a defined sort of like manifestation. So you sort of make it a little bit more customized to exactly what it is, as opposed to the universe will provide. Right. So, I mean, and everyone has their own version of it. I have quite a few paranormal psychic channelers on the podcast, and they sort of, we all have this consensus, which I love to hear, because, you get into your own state where you need confirmation of what it is that you're experiencing, rather than feeling as though you might possibly be having some psychotic episode.
Going a little unhinged, right? Yeah.
Right. So it's very kind of clear you had your near death, which kind of would give you the sense of the idea of, maybe if I'm going to die, hey, I might as well jump ship now.
Right.
The idea of the physical loss kind of puts you in a place where you instantly obtain this what we would consider NDEOBE sort of like astral projection realization.
Mhm.
Now that you've become more aware of it, when you teach people this type of processes, what kind of mechanisms would you use to help them come to this realization?
I really like to teach ordinary people. I love this idea that you keep repeating, like so many paths up the mountain. Like, I don't really care what a person's religious background is or any of their background, or even, I mean, ideally, they're going to be sort of substance and alcohol free. That gives you a clearer way to connect. But I'd rather just take anyone at any moment on the path, if you're interested in, the way that I would put it is meeting the guides or meeting the divine helpers, like, just go do that immediately when this calling comes. You don't have to clean up your act perfectly at all. You can just go. So I like to teach. Yeah, I like to teach people. I call it entering in, where we go into just a very gentle trance and we work to connect with the guides, or we do some other clairvoyant type exercising. And this kind of helps them receive messages that builds the trust, like that this is actually real. After a certain point, if somebody starts to really receive so many messages that, who could have known this except for the universe or the divine? Like, who could have known this? And they start to build that trust bridge. So we enter in, we do those practices. They're pretty simple, almost like at the beginning, almost like little games we play. We go up, we look around, what's there. I'll do a lot of blind readings where we answer the question before we know what the question is, which always is really fun because, again, that trust is built. Like, oh, how could I have answered that? Well, because we're all one. That's why. Simple answer, you got it right. So entering in, and then we go and we expand out and we start to notice, okay, the universe is continually pummeling us with synchronicities and signs and magic and miracles. And like, are we actually, like, did we notice those today? Or are we just, blindly like on our phones? And then connection with, so the signs and the synchronicities, which are continuous. And then just the vibration of nature, which helps us. I don't even know how nature does it, but it sure does. It just, everything comes into wholeness when we're in that space. So nothing's very ancient. I mean, maybe it is, but nothing's from books. It's just, let's do these practices and see what happens. And over time, people are, okay, this is like a real, this is a way I can repeat and repeat and repeat on my path. And then we start to see, people's lives change and just ability to make better choices. Just life gets a little easier.
Yeah. No, I just love the way you you approach that.
Yeah.
And sort of the realization is, and I always remind people of this: if you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a lot of authoritarians are not happy with my answer, which is, your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. Oh, no. Hang on a second there, buddy. You're empowering someone with the idea that they're all powerful and all knowing. You can't possibly do that. Oh, yes, I can. And I think that there's a lot of that issue where people become very in doubt of their inner knowing, and they end up looking for this external validation from someone else that can validate their very experience. And so I always use things as a foundation within the Taoist practices. The most important thing is building the internal alchemy so that you can transmute that energy repeatedly, whether it's in a healing, manifestation, magic, and that's your validation. It's like, hang on, I accessed a higher consciousness and altered this 3D reality. Oh, it definitely happened. Oh, yeah. I just witnessed the healing. Oh, I just witnessed manifestation. Oh, I just witnessed magic.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. It's
Yeah.
more than just, excuse me, the idea of, because, you know, even right down to people that sort of tend to frame reality as a definitive, absolute, in the inner workings of quantum physics, which is just a new language. I mean, it's, you know, the
Yeah.
language I deal with is, you know, 7, 8 generations of change, all the way back to oracle bone reading within the Chinese culture 6, 10, 15,000 years ago. So it's all relevant. And I would say that even though you may not say, hey, I believe the stuff that I'm getting that's really clear, it's helping people change their lives, is not ancient, I would probably argue with you to say it is. It's just how you perceive it, and it doesn't really. It really doesn't matter. It's like,
Right.
how do you get there? And the fact that you help people open up this inner power of
Yeah.
understanding the true nature of who they are is the most exciting part, because it's that validation. That's it for me personally. That's what I've observed. What about yourself?
Well, I think we're so loaded down with mainstream culture, dominant culture, religious culture. This idea that instead of there are many paths up the mountain, that, you know, there's this one way or this other one way. And we are so confused by these ideas that to live a meaningful life means wealth or fame or success or Botox, or, you know, what? Yeah. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that there's more. There's more than that.
Just a
So
little poquito more.
yeah.
No,
So
yeah.
yeah. So it's just like helping people like take the veil off. And part of the way is, if you can do a blind reading and get the answer before you know the question, you're connecting to that inner power. And then you sort of see like, what are these misbeliefs, or what is this mainstream veil that I've been living in? And then you start to kind of open up to other possibilities.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean your life's going to get, I mean, your life will get better, but it doesn't mean everything's going to go perfectly right away. It's a path over many lifetimes, right? It's not just this lifetime, I think. So
Yeah. No, I mean, again, what a beautiful way to put it, because I get people that commit to absolutes, and like we've both agreed on, there are a million ways to go up the mountain. So even someone who's sort of absolute in, well, physics says that crunching numbers means this, I will tell you that you don't call it a theory for nothing, because
yeah.
they're all conceptual. Everything. What
Yes.
I say, what
Yes.
you say, it's all conceptual until someone embodies that and takes what it is that you're sharing with them, and they're able to repeat it in their own reality. Then it goes beyond conceptual. It goes beyond just this way of processing things. And that validation, I love the way that you say that. It's like answer a question. It's something that is so powerful. And that's pretty much how I've taught people my whole career, is giving them the experience, the information, and then I will show them something after the fact that they'll go, I already got that information. Whoa,
Yeah.
I felt it. I could see it. It all came in. And then you mentioned it. Poof. How is that possible? And I think that's a brilliant way to teach people. And I think maybe it has something to do with the dimensional shift. But I've always noticed that from probably the first second I was aware within my natural born life that this was a transmissional way to alter things and get into that information. And it's really exciting hearing you say it, because that's just how I've always approached it. But you are clearly tuning yourself in a similar way to this type of like realization. You want to share more with me?
Well, it's I always delight in the ways that synchronicities come in and sort of, I don't know, give us a little warm fuzzy boost by their magic. One of the reasons I was intrigued to be talking with you is because the day before I'd had this very very, very deep, unexpected meditation in which, and this is not my tradition, it's not, but Lao Tzu came in and gave me a red lotus and said, please meditate on this. And I'm like, okay. And Lao Tzu was there. And, I just kind of follow directions in meditation. I'm not really there to question the masters or whatever. And
Beautiful.
So I'm attempting to focus on the lotus in the meditation. And then my mind is, oh gosh, where is it? It's here and there. It's flying around. And I come back to the lotus, and Lao Tzu's been there the whole time. Like, I've been here. Where have you been? I'm like, okay, try again. Oh, the mind goes, coming back. And this went on, me attempting to gain that attempt at concentration, and the mind. But then the next day, you reached out to me, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This Taoist tradition is coming forward. So that was one surprise. And then the various things that happen in a day when you're kind of paying attention. And even today I was speaking with my daughter on the phone. She was talking about her desire to begin some creative projects. And all of a sudden she starts sort of yelling, and she said, oh my God, there's a hawk right outside. And she's living in a very small apartment in the city. This is not the customary, this is the magical spiritual being coming down. And I think when we start on this journey, it's not so much that we get the answer before we know the question. We open ourselves to an entirely different reality, magic, miracles, energy shifting, beings. And we begin to walk in that world. And I find that so much more encouraging than the mainstream view that we seem to be slogging through at the moment. It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I would speak more on the whole access of information. How I generally teach people is it's another sensory perception. So when I do a psychic reading on someone and I have never met them before, or I'm in their presence 3 seconds, I can give you a mental, emotional, and physical state like this. People go, whoa.
Yeah.
And this is part of that awakening that you speak of, where people are amazed at you in tuning them with information or answering a question before there is one.
Right.
Is a really powerful way to get someone's attention to realize there's something greater out there. And it comes in all different types of ways. I think it's phenomenal that you have this access and are sharing this with the world, and just revealing something that is undeniable at a certain point. I mean, that's what, to me personally, that's why I teach people all these different types of sensory perception, to validate what they're experiencing. So then they know, oh my goodness, this 3D reality is nothing. This is like, it's time to level up. It's time to get to that higher level. And that comes from your experience and what you're sharing with people. That's a higher level of consciousness. That's another dimension. And you're able to bring this down into a 3D reality and show it to someone is really masterful.
I think I teach a lot of people. That's kind of my focus now, is in teaching some of the things that I practice. And so for those, some people are so gifted in their clairvoyance or their ability to read people. And so we'll do a process where before the person even shows up, we'll, as a group, I call it just getting a guiding vision. And we will answer the question of the person before we even know their name or before they arrive. And usually we'll get some sort of often we'll get a symbolic answer. Like, say someone had a big health issue, we might get a flower that's, dried and crumpling, as an example. Or say someone was going to have a big career move, we might get some, I don't know what we'd get, but the idea that I'm always stunned by the power of people, not just me, but lots of people, to be able to access this work. Like, I almost feel like anyone could do this. Maybe the only people that couldn't do this is those who are really, really, really attached to the main, to the one view, that refuse to open further. But I kind of think everyone could practice this, and that would be very interesting if we all tuned into that newer range of perception.
Yeah, I mean, I concur absolutely 100. I mean, just looking at you and your aura, you have all these crazy medieval dragons flying around through your aura, and you've got this whole sort of like Nordic type theme going on. I don't know where that's coming from, but it's pretty powerful stuff. Is that relevant to anything that you sort of get yourself into?
Well, I don't. My father was Sami, which is very far north Norwegian, and then I have quite a bit of Irish. But when I do past lives, I'm always in the Buddhist monastery. Like, okay, there we are again. And the people I tend to have in my closer circle, that's sort of how I recognize them from. It's like, oh, we were in the monastery together, or maybe it's the Catholic. I'm scribing the books, my back hurts. It's like, I have had many lifetimes doing this work. It's just this time I'm a woman, which is different. Different to be a woman. And
that would absolutely account for Kuan Yin's vibrant silver sort of like yin essence in your field, which is sort of, it was like an interesting combination. I'm like, hang on, I've got this whole Nordic thing going on, and then you've got Kuan Yin sort of filtering in and out of your aura, and your aura is all shimmering from silver to gold to white, and it's emanating these gold stardust images. It's kind of interesting.
Well, thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just I've been doing this so long, and the first time I did it, it was over 30 years ago. It was an epiphany moment, and because the information is never wrong, I don't get attached to it because it's not mine. So I just see it and I just share it, and 99% of people that are just truly at one with themselves realize, holy crap, how did he see all this? Look, it's just there. And once you refine your skill, you can do it. But I distinctly remember this woman that was in one of my training classes. She was a psychiatrist. And I instantly my senses turned on. And they were sharing with me, like, this woman is got multiple personalities, very unstable, all this kind of stuff. And I didn't have the ability to hold back. I was just excited to get this information. And I was just like, wow, you've got a lot of issues that you should really deal with, because you shouldn't be helping other people. You should be helping yourself. And she just lost it. That was the first and last time I did that. But I mean, she was just like, how dare someone like this have access to information like that? He shouldn't be able to do this. And I was like, look, I'm really apologize. It was just exciting. It was like in this moment of like, oh, wow, this information came in. And it's an exciting thing that I love the bond that you and I are having in relation to understanding the true nature of the magic, the true nature of, being intuitive and being at one with the higher sense of knowing. And that's the exciting part. It gets really,
it's interesting when you're speaking. It feels like you have a lot of, or do a lot of maybe physical working with the energy, physically shifting the energy, or like healing or so forth. And
very good. That's all. That was the first thing one of the first things I witnessed 30 years ago was the healing of physical flesh from what is it? Gangrenous foot.
Oh my goodness.
Amputated flesh and blood back to regular circulated blood within 40 minutes. I witnessed that. And so this, to me, I've seen cancer shrink before my very eyes, tumors disappear, broken ankles fuse back together, the flesh open and close in front of my very eyes. I've seen it all. I see it every day. I see it. And so tuning into that frequency is kind of just something that I must have had from I know I've had from many past lives, probably close to 100 of them in a very similar situation, that brings me to this sort of attunement. But I really appreciate you seeing that intuition is working very well for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. So this idea that maybe you have energetic healing perhaps, and maybe I have channeling, and then somebody watching maybe is a medium, or somebody is a past life. Sometimes people can just be like, your past life was this, and then, or just having these different gifts areas. And I kind of think, like you just said, we sort of have been doing, like, I know this channeling and teaching also, it's been forever. I don't know when forever started, but like, we don't necessarily have to be expert at them all. Like, a medium may never be an energy healer. They could, because the level of awareness means that they could do all of it. But I think finding our niche area, I don't know, it's almost like we're here to offer our gifts to the world, or to be in service. And so we don't have to be obsessed with, I got to do this and I got to do this. And we just need to know, like, what's our most natural, and then we're going to offer it to the world. And each person hopefully is doing the same.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I tend to try. I don't try. I share with people how to level out sensory perception, so you can be quite efficient at all categories, all above categories. There's really no exception. I find that, once you share with people the techniques, they can turn them all on. There's no real, as you and I both understand, it's like everyone has their starting point. We call it the glimpse, right? They get a taste of it, and then they're like, I'm off to the races, man. I can see dead people. I can heal people. I can read energy. I can do, and it's like it's so immersed in it. It's so exciting. And then it's like, from the systems that I tend to train people in, it balances out. So you can actually have your finger in every single pie if you'd like. I don't get too caught up in the semantics of stuff. So it's like, if I'm in the mood to give people 9 live, I normally give people 9 live lives before this one readings, to give them a sense of who they are. And what happens is they'll be in a position, they'll just lay down, sit up, close their eyes, open their eyes. But when they see the experience, it comes through in their third eye. So it's like watching a little movie. And so that type of stuff is just another development, just as healing, just as your incredible insight into intuitively being aware of other people's senses. It's like, it's just exciting. I love to see how everyone immerses themselves into, as you say, your own gifts. I would just further expand on that and just say that your incredible gifts can be expanded upon and magnified in all categories if you choose to. You don't have to. It's like, I teach people martial form, which it starts with the internal alchemy, being that's the real kicker. The juice is the Nigong, and that's how you cultivate the energy so you can transmute it and heal and do all these crazy telekinesis things. Now, do I care for martial arts? No. I've got zero interest in wanting to show someone a martial form, dominate someone, submit someone with any martial techniques whatsoever. I am super obsessed with watching people's physical healing, mental, emotional healing. I love it. It excites me. And that drives me into my expansion, my journey here is witnessing how other people stumble across it. Like, just the universe bringing you and I together and hearing your incredible story and your abilities and sharing that. It's like, the audience can see this because they watch this channel. You're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. And I can validate quite clearly today that she was very much on point reading information about what I do. And that's just like, that's being in tune with the information. I don't know. It's very exciting.
It's interesting too, because if we also look, so lots of people can choose to have lots of gifts. They just can start to learn. And then almost like I find people tend to slot into, I'm going to be a healer, I'm going to be a teacher, someone else is going to be a reader, someone else is, and I don't know. I'm not sure where I'm going with that. But again, I think I'm very interested in this idea of, if we're oneness, which I think we are, then each part of the oneness, in order to have this expansion or this lifting of consciousness, has to contribute. And the contribution, if the best you can do is just have this little idea that we're not separate, and that's as far as you get, that's something, just a little bit of heart opening that's going to add. And if you do have these gifts and capabilities of going farther than the linear view, offering them from the most natural, easiest way. Like, we don't need to get hung up in getting PhDs. We just need to show up and offer. And then the other piece is like, I find some of the most gifted readers I know, like, have trouble in regular life. Like, they might not have the quote career success or all the other bells and whistles that we're, supposed to have. And this is fine. Like, the spiritual path is so much more interesting than the mainstream path, in my opinion. And why, once you've looked at the world and seen it for the sort of swirl of misinformation that it is, why would you want to inhabit that world and master it, where this other bigger universe is awaiting you? That's so I think helping people to understand that they might not fit, or their sensitivities can be hard to manage in the quote real world, because they're receiving so much information all at once, and much of the world is sort of blocking that or not receiving it. So kind of being really easy on yourself if you're feeling sensitive or different, or having experiences you don't know how to talk about, just being gentle with yourself.
I think that's a beautiful insight, because I get a lot of people on my doorstep that have spent years chasing an answer to their very experience, and they haven't been able to have it validated because they haven't found anyone that has experienced what they're experiencing. So when I go, oh yeah, that's absolutely not a psychotic episode.
Right. Yes.
I can give you more insight as to how that has come about and what you're doing and what you're experiencing from an energetic level. And people are just like, oh my goodness, my prayers have finally been answered. Sure. You manifested it to get to a point where you have a deeper understanding by having someone with a little bit more insight to give you guidance. Is it the right or wrong way? No. I mean, is there a right or wrong way? No. How you acquire this state is like, all I would say to anyone is understand that your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with, and validate it for yourself. Whatever Sarah says, whatever I say, it's irrelevant unless it resonates with you. And to let it resonate with you, let it be, this is the truth teller. Let it express itself, and then you gravitate to wherever it is that you want to be to have it realized. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that. I'll often say I'm teaching a group online some technique, like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we do it. And then somebody will say, something different happened for me. Is that okay? I'm like, yes, go with it. Or somebody will say, should I do the 2 steps up or the 3 steps up? And I'm like, whatever, just like experiment. It's your connection to everything. It's not my connection. I know I can be the Sherpa or the guide for one little way, but if you find a better way, just go work with that. And I think I think around here where I live, or maybe just in general, it does seem to be that this sort of a lot of these ideas are getting super, super commercialized, or there's a lot of systems that are super monetized. And I think what I find is a lot of it's not very effective, or it's leading people almost on the wrong path. So in addition to find your own, like your path is as valid as anyone's, I think being really aware of, non-guru worship, or non-putting the teacher on a pedestal, or we're all just souls. There's no hierarchy there. And just kind of being cautious about where you give your power, because your power should be with you and the divine, not with you and San, or you and Sarah, or you and anybody. It should be your own experience. And so I think that's a frustration I face a lot when my Instagram is, or my, I'm just like, no, that none of this is right. But everyone has to find their own way through those hurdles anyway. So that's sort of.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, within Taoism, we have an expression: the student is the teacher is the student. When you lose sight of that, you lose sight of everything. Your consciousness halts to exist when you lose sight of that realization, because it's a constant living expression of what the true nature of reality is, the universe. The present moment is the only thing that's real.
Yeah.
And so when you truly embody that present moment, then you are all things. And so to acquire a healing like the things that I've spoken of previously, it's being in that present moment. And that way you can access a level of consciousness and alter human flesh, and alter people's mental, emotional state, their spiritual. I mean, ultimately the highest expression of complete transformation is spiritual healing. And so that all just trickles down to the manifestation of physical. But in of itself, this present moment, and I mean, that's acquiring that. It's like there's a fundament. That's why I really lean on the internal alchemy practices, because you want to be able to have a validation. It's like when you are able to palpate the energy, say, for example, if I'm working with someone and I want to show them how to move energy, whether it's a physical transformation or I just want to move someone, and they're like, oh, I'll put my hands on you and I will drive the energy through them into the ground and throw them across the room by doing this, with literally like this. And they freak out and go, how did you do that? It's just all energy. And understanding that when you open up your own fascia within the physical body, the channel of energy is easily transferred and you can enter other people's energy. That's I mean, that's just happening all the time. If you even understand the idea of like quantum entanglement, that's already there. We're already one. So it's like, okay, so how do you transfer? And then people will say, well, that's not very nice. You're penetrating someone else's field. And I'm like, listen, if you're standing here and you're experiencing this and you want me to show you, this is what happens. The realization is people tend to feel like I'm protected. People cannot enter my aura. Unfortunately, I hate to break it to them, but you are me, I am you.
Yeah.
And so you become susceptible to this duality complexity when you engage in fear. Fear will be your very demise. Fear will be the suggestibility moment that sort of like unravels you, because that's really the catalyst of what people define as karma. Because if you believe in karma, it will find you. And so then people are like, what are you talking about, Shifa? This is kind of getting crazy. I'm like, listen, basically, if you look at human history and you see the megalomaniacs that have committed genocide on humanity, and you wonder, how did they fall from their rise of megalomaniacism? Well, how did they fall from it? It's quite simple. They stopped believing their rhetoric and their propaganda and their psychotic behavior. And by doing that, in of itself, they realized in the back of their unconscious that there really is this other side of the coin, that like, I'm going to go and commit these incredible heinous crimes on humanity and think that there's just no equalizer. Well,
Mhm.
as long as you believe that, that's fine. But most of them, in the back of their mind, they say one thing and they do another. They believe it, but then they don't actually know it. And
Yeah.
so that's the difference in how, these types of people like Mao or Hitler or any of these people that have killed millions, hundreds of millions of people. And there's no accountability. What's going to happen? Well, because they believe in duality, it supersedes all things. They draws them down. It equalizes their very insanity. Generally, how things sort of operate in that duality model. And so I always tell people, if you walk under a ladder and you believe it's going to give you bad luck, it'll give you bad luck. If you believe it's going to give you good luck, it'll give you good luck. But that belief system has to be, unfaltered. I mean, the knowing something that you cultivate. The knowing is something that you repeat, like just as you teach people intuitive skills, that's their validation. It's like, oh, I got the answer to that. Oh my goodness. I was able to hear this in a much deeper level and then validate it through a 3D reality. What's your thought on that?
I think it's interesting that you're talking about this idea of karma, so I didn't have a lot of background in karma because the traditions that I'd been raised in, the lightweight Christian and then the Catholic, which was, sin, which is not exactly karma, but in this channeling, one of the first things that came in maybe, I think like 2006, so it was quite a while ago, was this idea of karma. And what the guide said to me was, karma is not a payback from the past or something, but karma is this really simple definition, which you may or may not agree with, but karma is soul lessons learned over time. And by time, they mean this lifetime, but also, all the many lifetimes. And so that seemed to be a great relief, because this idea of if you're reaching a karmic lesson, a challenge or something, sort of like the faster you can learn, the less you have to repeat it. And it seems to me like the faster you can learn is just by sort of letting go and surrendering. I don't know, surrendering from the ideas that got you into that situation in the first place. I don't know. It just was interesting that you mentioned that karma, and then karma is soul lessons learned over time.
That's a beautiful way to look at it, because I mean, I always tell people, because they get these scenarios where, oh, I heard that on the other side there's like a life review, and then there's a soul contract, and I'm like, it's
maybe what you think. It's what they believe.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's all predicated on what you believe in.
Yeah.
So I've explored hundreds of dimensions, and none of them transmute the way that someone's description of Akashic records or halls of Amente, or and again, it's an access point of information, and if that's how you've sort of transmuted it into this idea of getting access to high levels of consciousness that gives you direct source, that's fantastic. I think it's amazing. Personally, I've never seen that. I mean, we do soul retrieval within Taoism, but I kind of like threw that baby out with the bathwater when it comes to that, because it's sort of like a human distraction, in my opinion, from doing this.
I can see that.
It's kind of like emotional content, right? The emotional content tends to put you in a very human aspect, and that's your personality. I would never want to erase your personality, which people tend to get confused with. They're like, oh, they've told me I need to take my shirt off my back. I have to transform myself into Jesus or God or whatever else. No, you just need to be you. You just need to be able to master that this state that you're in, as identified as you, can be put to the side, And then you can access a high level of ascension and still go back and put your underwear back on and be your old personality that you were born into this world with and experience it however you choose to, but realize that you have that ability to access another level of consciousness. What are your thoughts on that?
I like this idea, and the way that I tend to have this mind that takes maybe, and I would say mind, ego, personality, all is one thing. That's kind of how I put it together. But I have this mind that takes really complicated things, I think, at least they're complicated to me, right? And then I put them in really simple, like for a child, because I'm immature, because I like to do it that way. And so I just think when I'm going up into clairvoyance or going up to the guides or into mediumship, I really just think of it as simple as I'm going to visit my friend's house here. This is where the guides live. I'm going to visit my other friend's house here. This is where the departed live. Here's where the past lives are. Here's where the Akashic records. Here's where healing is. And it's just this, it's all one big house, right? It's just an easier way to segment the mind so that the mind doesn't get too much information in all at once. But I think I teach at that level, and I'm still a mother, but I raised 4 kids. So I teach at that level for maybe what could a kindergartner understand? Not that we're kindergartners, but this is almost like the simplicity of the task yields great results for me, rather than having a very complicated meditation and steps and process. And it's just like, just go to the house. What's there? Go to the other house. What's there? And it seems to work pretty well for, at least for Westerners. Maybe it doesn't work in all cultures, but for Westerners, they sort of get that idea.
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, I would attribute my level of consciousness, just acquiring it almost instantaneously over 30 years ago, to that very fact. And we always remind us, like, be childlike in your nature.
Yeah.
And so I just see things at face value. So if you're entering into this thing where you're thinking, I always say, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And so that feeling sort of like it mitigates and eliminates all this inside introspective analytical sort of humanness that gets all, well, it needs to be this way. And I was told that if I'm not levitating at a certain height and I'm not breathing in the air of the golden dust of the 5 moons of whatever, then I'm not going to acquire this ascension. And so, I agree with you wholeheartedly, because one of the first times I ever experienced that was I just finished. This was, again, I keep saying over 30, because it all happened so quickly.
Right. The awakening part,
I instantly entered into having access to this high level of ascension in 5 minutes, and I've just continued. Like, I literally superseded my teachers that had 50 or 70 years worth of training in this natural born life. And they're like, how the hell did you do this in 5 seconds? I did it once. I only had to do it once. And all of a sudden it was this access point was handed to me to help other people. But in essence, I attribute it to this. I went through a distance healing program. That program was part of the priest training, and it was a whole day training. And I had this sheet of information of how I'm supposed to conduct this ritual to acquire this access to heal someone. And I literally read through it. And a friend of mine at the time, we had rotary phones. She was calling me going, I busted my ankle. I can't get out. I want to see you. I'm like, oh, that's disappointing. Bummer, And she's like, man, my ankle's the size of a watermelon. I can't go anywhere. And I'm like, okay. All right. Well, I'll catch up with you next week. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, hang on. Whoa. And she's like, what? I'm like, I finished this training today. Let me check this out. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, let me follow the instruction. And I was like, A plus B equals C equals B. Yeah. And I went through it and I said, now the final thing is, don't think I'm weird. I'm going to go and mention what they call this. They call this an incantation. She's like, what is that? I'm like, well, it's just this thing where you say it and it helps it materialize this effect. And she's like, really? Okay. I only got another minute or two. So will you hurry up? I'm like, okay. So I go through, and then I finished it with an incantation, heal, 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 heal. And she went, what the fuck? And freaked out because her ankle, just the swelling was like this. It went down to nothing. She's standing up. She goes, my foot is perfect. She took a back in those days, guys, Polaroids. Yeah, she took a Polaroid of it. And so I got over to her house, and her mother's sitting there, and she's like,
yeah.
this is like something out of a Hollywood movie. She's sitting on her couch smoking a cigarette. She drinks a bottle of vodka every day. She's about 80 years old. You're just thinking, this is not even real. The daughter's sort of standing there, and she said, I always knew you were a healer. And I'm like, oh, shit. And so that was the second person I dealt with, because she had gangrenous feet that I completely witnessed the healing of instantaneously within 40 minutes. I witnessed it. And I took her sock off because she couldn't see over her distended stomach from years of drinking and smoking and being abusive, but she didn't believe in doctors. And she had all the money in the world, but she was like, I'm not doing I don't do doctors. I just don't. Yeah. I don't. And so she's like immersed in this whole world of like, too much money, too much time. I do not do that. I'm a mystical person. I'll do sort of like meditation, healings type of stuff. And she had this problem with the foot. When I looked at her foot, because it was like about 2 days later, the girl's like, oh, go and see my mother. She's got a problem with the foot. I'm like, all right, okay. I'll roll up there, and like she can't see her feet. She's got it on a stool, but her distended stomach, she's sitting on this thing, and I pull her sock off, and I just went, what the? It's black. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, we need to get you to a hospital. Like not in 5 minutes. Now.
Right.
He's like, so how's it going down there? I'm like, oh. And then my teacher, Latsu, came in. You're talking about Latsu. Latsu works with me on a daily basis. He comes in. What a coincidence. He comes in, and he's like, we're going to heal this. I'm like, really? We? Is we a proverbial we? I mean, what's going on here? No, I want you to witness this. This is part of your transformation. This is part of your realization of how powerful this very frequency that you're attuned to is. And I'm like, I'd like to see this. Let me get some popcorn. And in 40 minutes, I kid you not, it was gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I hadn't seen that, I wouldn't believe it. Now, I pretty much attune to that frequency all the time. It doesn't matter whether I've seen ankles broken, fused back together. I've seen tumors disappear on a daily basis. It doesn't really matter what it is. It can be healed. And it's a mental, emotional, spiritual, physical thing. And, it's sort of like when you witness it, it's crazy, but I love doing it. It's like, just 2 days ago, one of my kids was chasing the other one, and he went face first into the dirt, came up with a face that looked like a swollen watermelon. And, you tune into it, and it's not about me getting into emotion, because that's the real key. The real secret to it is the now. So if you're in the now and you don't attribute it to a place, person, or thing, and you are truly just in that now moment, I just tuned into it, looked at it, and went, heal, 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 heal. Internally. I didn't even open it. Wasn't an audible. And you watch his face just go, gone. And that's just healing in of itself. That's the extent of it. But, people don't believe that it can be that easy.
Yeah. Well, you're just tuning in to everything, and then you're moving some everything into the place I
don't even go that far as moving everything into, because if you truly believe you're the universe, I'm not going, universe, can you please help me out? I'm like, I am the universe. So I go, boom, there we go. We're done, moving right along. And so when you attune that, it's wild. It's just wild. And over 30 years, I've seen thousands of these events. I should write a book on it. But it is
interesting. I think the piece that I'm working on, so that we have this idea that we're working on different aspects of bringing contribution to the whole. I think one of the things that the channeling is there, but So taking complicated things and making them very simple in language. And then also this honing in on the emotional stuckness, or the piece in the person's belief system that is not diseased, but that needs healing or that needs releasing. And then other people might be able to, I don't know, just like, and that's the idea. Like probably when you're at the grocery store, you probably go in and you know everybody that needs healing. And then like, is that your job today? Or are you just supposed to get the apples? I don't know. And for me too, like I go in, I get everybody's story. It's impossible. We're one, it's impossible to not get it. Going back to that idea of, you know, people will say, I'll put a bubble around me. It's like, why? the bubble can maybe give you some confidence, but the idea is maybe to go transparent or to go translucent and to just become part of the oneness so that you're not getting smashed by whatever it is you're afraid of.
Well, that's the fear. That's the catalyst. The fear to me that I've come to realize, the fear is the suggestibility that is really your demise. And that's sort of an emotion that humans attach to so many different things, and sort of they create this construct that makes themselves limited. But, you know,
the fear is the fear I think is mostly around mortality, which I don't think, I mean, obviously life is wondrous and we'd like to stay here if we can, but after being through the washer and dryer cycle so many lifetimes, I don't know, like when the time is the time to transition, we can't control it. We can just sort of relax about, at least I don't know, I just feel quite clear that there are more lifetimes awaiting.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and enlightenment is not a goal for me in this in this lifetime, because I'm quite sure I'm not going to get there. But you know, maybe another time later. I don't have, you know, sometimes people come and I want to be enlightened. It's like, let's just work on some smaller goals of maybe you could see with your third eye today, or let's just go a little bit at a time.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's sort of the way people sort of like toss Taoism and Buddhism in the same sort of like category because they're Eastern practices. But in reality, Buddhism is so dramatically different to Taoism. It's like night and day. So a Buddhist life is a pile of dirt covered in diamonds, and they just take another diamond off looking for more dirt, right? It's like a deeper nature of pain and suffering. If they unravel that, then they can get to the ooey good ascension divine self. And that's completely fine. I love that. I love that this is how that they acquire their level of awareness. Whereas a Taoist will look at life as a pile of diamonds covered in dirt. They take a little bit more dirt. Oh, another diamond. It's good to be me. And so this is just sort of like, so longevity on a physicality level for a Buddhist is irrelevant. They don't care. I'm just going to burn this avatar out. I'll get another one. Whereas a Taoist will very much be immersed in longevity and extend that lifespan to acquire high levels of consciousness.
Right.
So,
that makes sense.
So by using the alchemy within inside yourself, you can take your battery that you come into the world with, and normally everything I've seen, most people come in with a battery that's anywhere between 80 and 90% of their 100 because of their constitution, their genetic profile, all that kind of good stuff. But the beautiful part is when you understand how to use the Taoist alchemy practices, you can bring your battery up to 100%, then to 1,000, then to 2,000. Then you come to a realization that you don't have to use any of your energy at all, because it's the misconception that most people have. They start tapping into their own life force, and that's why, hey, I'm a body worker, I'm exhausted. I'm a psychiatrist, I'm exhausted. I'm a medical doctor, I'm exhausted. I'm a Chinese medicine doctor, I'm exhausted. After I finish working with people, I don't want anything to do with healing anymore. And it's like this cycle, because they don't understand that they're they're handing off their life force that they don't have to by using the universe, which is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite.
Yeah.
When you identify as that, it becomes realized.
Yeah.
So, I love the fact that everyone has to get this level of consciousness, and consciousness for me is just being aware you have choices. And so that to me is sort of like, okay, this is where, like just as you said, hey, look, I don't think I'm going to get the 100 clicks necessary in this lifetime. I got the next one. I mean, I was talking to a guy just a week ago who's like, I was told to come here and in experience being a human. So I want it. I want the pain and suffering. I want it all. Bring it to me. I'm like, oh, you do. As one of my favorite Real Housewives of Atlanta. Have you ever seen that show? Anyway. Yeah, well,
no judgment.
One of the characters in it, her name is Nene, and she's like, you do you, honey, and I'll do me. And I'm like, absolutely, you do you. And that's really what it comes down to. It's like there is no right or wrong way. And it's however you want to acquire that is for you. It's not for someone to go, no, you're not on the highest point of consciousness path. I'm sorry. You're going to be, as you said, from Catholicism or was it Christianity? I'm not sure. But these sort of like mindsets again. And you look at me. I'm a confessed Taoist priest. Have been ordained in two different sects of Taoism, two different lineages of Taoism. One is 66 generation holder, another one 126 generation holder. But guess who one of my favorite spiritual people are? And people will look at me like, who? Joel Osteen. People go, what is wrong with you? This guy's a charlatan. He's a scam artist. He's a this. I'm like, if you understand anything about channeling, that's what that guy's doing. Now, what he does in his personal life, once he gets off stage or once he does anything outside of his church, or what, that's for him to decide. But I can promise you, having done this for as long as I have, he's channeling a transmission of information. He warms people's hearts. He gets thousands of people on a week-to-week basis acquire a level of knowing their connection with Jesus, their connection with God, whatever it is. It's like it's realizing there's more to this 3D reality. Right. And so, again, I go back to if you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. And so, the last person I would think that would like a Christian pastor would be a Taoist priest. I don't know. Right, I've got a bit of a bromance. I've got a man crush on him. I think he's fantastic because it's just, again, it's a transmission. Yeah. And what do you do with it? What are you really doing with your information? What are you doing with it? In Sarah's case, she's sharing and helping people, guiding them to their own awakening, their own awareness of how powerful they are. And I personally believe that's what I'm doing. I'm just helping people acquire this ability to be aware that there's something greater than what they believe is their 3D reality. And then it's so exciting. It gets exciting. People get excited. I don't know. I love watching it for the first time when someone goes, there's something more out there. Yeah. What are your thoughts on?
Well, people are waking up very, very quickly right now. I mean, they always say, "Oh, we're awakening. This is the time of awakening." But there is something different going on, and I can tell because my own experience is different. It's been different every year. It seems to become more and more different. I'm this kind of stuff you maybe couldn't even talk to people about even 5 years ago. And now like everyone's talking about it. And so this idea of each soul becoming conscious and then the souls that are, the sort of tipping effect of the entire oneness collective, which it's not just humans, it's animals, it's plants. My belief system, it's non-living, it's all of the energy particulate sort of expanding. So things are changing, and I think as our consciousness opens, then more consciousness opens, and then we see the old ideas falling, the old structures falling away, which obviously we're seeing, right now with some pretty big political systems tumbling away, and so we're just seeing it right in front of our face, and I love this idea too. Like I use this term like in channeling, like we're just, it's not hard, you know, in clairvoyance, maybe we go to the little houses in your head, and in channeling, you just become the tube. You're not in charge of it. You're just, oh, the tube or the faucet. You just turn the faucet on and it comes through and comes out, or it comes out in writing. You don't have to have all this ego concern, like, will I do it right? Or will I, you just do it and see what happens. And being the tube is a lot simpler than being the creator of the information, which is the universe. So that just, I don't know, I like to just make things very simple. Yeah, just thinking about that. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, the simplicity of receiving and then transmitting that, and so many people create a complexity around it, yet it can be really simple. There has to be some type of like access point that you could validate, rather than just sort of like, oh, I think I had a thought, I had a feeling, but I can't really attribute it to a
Oh,
way of accessing
yeah.
something. And that's where I find this a system, a method is far more effective, that you can repeat it over and over again, and it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, to a point 30 years later, just when I think I could feel more to any more energy, it just gets stronger.
Yeah. I have a pretty specific system I use to go up to the guides. It's very simple, but, and then I'm always interested as to who, like sometimes there was a period of time where I worked with like Merlin for, I don't know, 7 years. I was super interested that Lao Tzu came because that was new for me. Maybe it was just to make the introduction. I don't know. I've worked with.
He'll be back.
Yeah, I think so. Because I have to work on my Red Lotus focus, obviously. I worked with Gabriel for many, many, many years. And then I also worked with these two very interesting, very strict, this was my first channeling, these two like Mennonite or Quaker ladies. And they were so strict. They were like, you better pay attention and write it down correctly. And they were like school marms kind of, and so I'm always very curious as to who is going to show up and who the information is coming from, and then kind of a large variety of just these sort of light beings. I don't know who they are, but there's quite a few, a large contingent of those. And I'm always amazed because when other people do this as in student groups, other people will get very different. Some people will get Jesus, some people will get Kuan Yin, they'll get some guy with a hat. It's like it's varied. It's not necessarily the big stars. It's quite a few different beings, and and I don't think that the beings are made up in any way, any more than when you do mediumship, you'll actually get the real person who's departed. I think the beings are some kind of mastery consciousness level that is here to assist us. They just show up in different characteristics, different personalities, so it's easier for us to receive from them. That's what I think.
Yeah. No, I would have to agree. It really depends on where you're at in your own level of consciousness, quite frankly. It sort of like merges as it should, I mean, right now I sit here and see the three pure ones, my teachers, sitting in the very room that I'm operating in. Or I can access high levels of frequency that turns them into nothing but divine light. It really depends on what I'm in the mood for. Is it a cup of cocoa or 3 shots of espresso? Where am I at? But it's all a transmutation of realizing that you can access all these things instantaneously.
Yeah, and absolutely.
The thing that I really came to understand was sort of like, the more you immerse yourself in this sort of like, however you do it, your method, how you get to your guides, whatever, it becomes more and more refined, more and more effective, and more efficient with receiving information. That's my observation. What about
I
yourself?
think this word instantaneous is so important because one time I had a book that was with the publisher and the editor. I had the word, the guides will arrive instantaneously. In meditation, you will feel this instantaneously. The change will come instantaneously. And they were trying to take out all this language every time I said instantaneously and put in, after 10 minutes, or I'm like, no, it happens instantaneously again because of oneness. It's like we're just melding with the source, and there is no waiting period. If a person chooses to do a lengthy, long meditation, that's lovely, but it is not necessary for intuitive gathering or for healing we just go there and it happens.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree. Every time I do some type of group healing, I draw in or call in, Latsu, the three pure ones, the other 170 different like internal immortals that are within my lineage. It's instant. So even before I say it, so that's the thing that I love about you. It's like the person who's experiencing the experience is like, and you know what? When you called in Kuan Yin or Latsu, I already felt their presence resonate through my whole body before you even came out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And this is part of the way that I like to teach people. And clearly you do a similar thing where you teach them it's experiential before it's even realized here.
Yeah.
So you're experiencing this feeling that's coming through you, and you're like, hang on a second. Then I validated it with them saying that the presence of Kuan Yin was in the room because I felt her through my whole being.
Yeah. And also just I teach with a lot of humor because, again, my immaturity, but I think the more people lighten up, then the vibration lightens up. We don't have to get all tightened up like, oh, I'm gonna get to level 4 today. Like, just relax. It's okay. This is a fun, beautiful, wondrous thing. It's not just like a tight, pressurized, you're gonna fail. There's no failure in this particular exploration. There's not.
No, well, there doesn't have to be. I mean, it really is. It comes back to you say tomato, I say tomato.
Right.
And if you believe it's going to be hard and you say it, you speak it to be hard, it will be hard. If you speak it to be easy, it will be easy. It literally, the catalyst of your reality comes down to the simplicity of glass half empty, glass half full. How do you perceive your reality? And then it transmutes that way. I mean, that people get blown away with, you mean that's the sum of all things, Shifu? Is this it? And I'm like, actually, yeah, it's really. So I help you deconstruct all the mind prison creations that you have generated through your life experience that has put you in a place that you have to unravel those, and they can be instantaneous. I always tell people you can have every single experience I've had in the last 100 lives and have it realized as the most powerful source of all things instantaneously, just by hearing me say that.
Just
they're
like
like,
that.
what?
Yeah.
What? Yes, you can replicate anything that I can access immediately just from hearing me say that.
Yeah.
And people are like, whoa. And then, if you want me to get all technical, I can give you a sort of a neuroplasticity based 101 crash course on how the mirror neurons from the base of your brain and the mirror neurons in the base of my brain are now replicating each other. And, I do that quite simply at night when I have 6 kids. So it's like bedtime and daddy wants to get back to Netflix. So it's like, I'll grab the first one and I just hold
right. Yeah.
I start replicating their breath. And then I sink into their respiration patterns. Then I sync every single one in the room. And then in about 3 seconds, I go, and now take a deep breath in.
Yeah.
And then good night. Anyway, back to Netflix. What are we watching?
Yeah.
And everything's gone.
And they're going, Dad, don't hypnotize us again. Stop that. We know what you're doing.
Well, it's that even that the idea of free will is a myth because that frequency is the frequency.
Yeah.
And so, people tend to freak out when they they're either on a live healing, or online or in person, when they're in the presence of whatever frequency I'm transmitting, and they're like, man, I don't know what you're doing, but
Yeah.
I'm feeling very relaxed, and you
Yeah.
haven't done anything. You're not doing anything right now. I'm like, I'm just transmitting it, and you're attuning to it, and it's really that simple. And then all of a sudden, we will instantly align ourselves to start healing, and your healing will be whatever is necessary for you. If you come in with a broken ankle, a headache, a sore back, whatever it is, it will be realized in the same moment. And if we have 1,000 people, you're going to watch 1,000 different versions of whatever it is that they're bringing. And so that's the simplicity of the transmission. But there is an attunement, and the skill set becomes even clearer. And I find that the more and more you refine it, the more and more you immerse yourself in it, you become more efficient at it. So there is a mastery that you can acquire as an individual by just applying specific techniques, so that it can, you can repeat it and you can validate it. Oh, it happened again and again and again. And so, have you ever heard of the parking fairy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where yes, I use the parking fairy almost every time. It's
Right.
kind of, and it leaves my family members in awe. Like, how did you do that? I just,
you know how you did it.
I just saw it there.
Well, it's not even. It's not even that.
It just existed, and I had it come into timing with me, sort of.
Right. Well, I always let people wet their whistle with that, because that's a quick validation. Because in their mind, they can go, well, no one knows I'm thinking this. I want a parking space out the front of wherever, TJ Maxx, whatever it is. And guess what? I'm not telling anyone that. So I'll just quietly have this little joke with myself. And because they're not acquiring it through an emotional state, it becomes realized instantaneously. And that is transferred into a physical healing or a manifestation or magic of any kind. Only people can't qualify that from a simple thing like manifesting a parking space 1,000 times. They can't transfer it to healing physical flesh, because it's still something that is so out of their reach of reality.
Right.
And then when they see me show it to them, they go, "Oh, you weren't kidding." No, I wasn't kidding.
So I like to, I've been working with this idea of, so I'll sometimes I'll ask the parking fairy, but other times I'll say, okay, universe, here we are. I wouldn't, wherever I'm going, and I'll be like, I would like you to show me where to park that is the most interesting, the best use of my potentiality, like, give me a surprise. Like, and I can't really think of exactly anything specific relating to that example, but I love this idea, and I teach this idea a lot, because so many people have gotten so confused by like The Secret or law of attraction. We're not here to force the universe into our worldly desires, right? We're not here to force the universe. Well, yes, we can, but it's a waste of our beingness, I suppose. And I'm very interested in following the flow of what's happening and seeing where that goes. And that is a different experience for most people, because they've been sort of taught by the success of some of these other systems, like, you got to write your affirmations, it's like, no, just notice what's happening and go with that. And that will be a very interesting journey for you. And I've been doing that for quite a long time. And the universe is pretty surprising, and it's really interesting to not attempt to control, just to let go.
That's I love that. I love that. I would say that I tend to perhaps make it look a little easier than it is. It is that easy, but I use this as an example because this only happened like 3 days ago. I was driving. I was following the traffic. I went 10 miles over the speed limit. Anyway, cop goes, woo, pulls me over. I've got my kids and my wife in the car.
You're like, there is no time.
Right. And so I'm walking. They're walking up to the car and they're like, wind the windows down or bring them down, because they were, had their hand on their holster. They're freaking out. There's
Oh my
all
God.
these bodies
Yeah.
because I've got like 6 kids, and they're like, oh, and they're like, and my personality wasn't having it. See, personality is a
There
really
you go.
beautiful thing. It's like underwear. So, but what people tend to misunderstand is I can operate in all dimensions at once. I can enjoy my personality, and I can create change and healing. Part of Nigong is being able to transmute the same energy, frequency, or vibration in all dimensions at once.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you a whole new definition of multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
So on face value, you're looking at me. I'm like, listen, well, how can I help you? And they're kind of looking at me, and my wife's like, really? I'm like, yeah. What seems to be the problem? You were speeding. I'm like, really? Show me the radar. And my wife's like, really? You really gonna ask? I'm like, yeah. I'm going there. And he's like, license and registration. I'm like, sure, here it is. But by the way, is there any reason why you feel so anxious and angry right now that you want to draw your firearm on my family? And he just was like, give me your license and registration. He takes it, because I'm going to go write you a ticket right now. And he walks off. Now, while I'm misdirecting his attention to his emotional state, which makes it very suggestible, I had already cast a pattern of recognition of magic in of itself. He went, and unless you witness this, you're not going to believe it. So he went off with the intention, this guy's incited me, I'm giving him a ticket. He walks off, he comes back. Here you go, sir, here's your license and registration. I'm giving you a warning. And you have a nice day. It's really good to see you. And you go, what? Well, that's part of, magic. That's part of changing the frequency.
Yes.
And you can do it at will. But this is a mastery, realizing that don't be distracted by your personality, because that's where people feed into an emotion and they make it realize that face value, it's not face value. It's deep seated inside their very being, and they can't get out of it. They can't get out of the anger. They can't get out of their frustration. They can't get out of their fear. They can't get out of their sadness, their depression, all these things layered upon layered. And that really is how you can really start to affect change in a higher level of consciousness, is when you realize that's my personality and I don't want to erase it. It's part of my experience, but can you, in real time, can you shift that? And I'll do it with little things like, if it's my kids, I'll be like, okay, here's the first one that can get the dog to stop whining gets $50. And so we'll all sit there at the kitchen table, and the first person that can sink their intention into calming the heart of the dog and calming its temperament, and you go from a dog barking to silence. And I can watch the energy shift and which one of them got it first. But it's that simple. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? You're just attuning them back to the default.
Right.
So some people would say, well, are you manipulating and controlling the universe? Not at all. Well, first of all, the universe is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. But you're attuning that erratic sort of like frequency back to a default frequency. So you're bringing it back to its true nature. And that's why you can see the effect of change instantly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I used to do something similar in the way that I would describe it, very, very simply, right? Say everybody was in the car, very cranky, going to school. Everyone's tired, or they're doing their homework in the car, probably, or whatever, and they're fighting. And then I'll be like, okay, everybody, let's just turn our energy to green. We just go heart chakra. Let's just everyone turn green. Suddenly, the chaos subsides a bit after they grumble. Oh, we don't want to. Okay, let's everyone turn your energy to blue. And then you just sort of, that attunement of the group to the same frequency alleviates the chaos, which just sort of relaxes the moment. I think the one thing I wanted to talk about too is I know, like on the West Coast of the US and Europe and other places, like so many people especially are doing all these journeys, like with ayahuasca, or like mushrooms are widely, not widely, but are really being used in psychotherapy and stuff. And I don't have a judgment around what people do. I
I'm
really
not,
don't. But for me, like I'm just like I want to learn. I want to practice from nothing. Like I want to get there on my own. I don't want to
now
have
bless
the
your heart, my friend. I'm
so
just
yeah. Well, I mean,
you
people
and I
are
are
listening.
resonating.
What do
You
you think? Go
you
ahead.
and I are resonating so well.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, honestly, with any external access point that you want. Whether it's, I've never seen this, but it could be possible. Methamphetamine doesn't exactly create consciousness, but let's say alcohol, pot,
Yeah.
ayahuasca, mind melting drugs, LSD, whatever it is. I don't have a problem with it. It's valuable until it's not valuable.
Yeah.
So, people use this stuff, and if you're getting something from it that is enhancing your reality, go straight ahead. What I tend to tell people is if you go on a DMT experience that lasts 20 minutes and you get a glimpse of that, you're spending the rest of your natural born life chasing the dragon to acquire that very thing. And then you turn it into what people perceive as a crutch. And that's the only way they access it. So I always say, if you've got a taste of it, I think that's great. Now I'm going to show you how to acquire the DMT
Yes.
production. Only it's
Exactly.
not going to be 20 minutes. I'm going to show you an 8-hour, a 3-day experience that you have acquired within yourself that
Yes.
you were able to cultivate. And
Yes.
so I would agree with you. I just found it funny that you brought that up because it seems to be a big thing right now because, what we're speaking of, being present moment, is not fast enough for most people that are on social media flicking through shorts all day long. And 1 second is not quick enough, even though we're saying it's instant. We could show you instant. No, instant's not fast enough right now, my
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
I need faster. And it's almost like the catalyst of taking, I know that I'm going to get there. If I take this mushroom, if I take this LSD, if I take this mind-altering drug, I get guaranteed I'm going to have a mystical experience. Guaranteed I'm going to have a spiritual experience. Now, I've come across gurus and mystics that smoke a pound of hashish a day, and they are truly enlightened, but they're also that person that has accessed this understanding that the emotions they don't control them, and they're not the soundtrack to their reality. And this is how someone like that can turn around and be, it's grandpa, he lived to be 112 drinking a bottle of whiskey and 5 packs of cigarettes. How did that happen? Because he discovered that he wasn't controlled at all by his emotions. He attuned to being present moment. He realized present moment. He realized that's it. That's the beginning in all things. That's the past, present, and future all realized at once. And when I'm present moment, I'm happy with my bottle of whiskey and my 5 packs of cigarettes, and I'm embracing and resonating with that frequency. And you're that, that phenomenon where they live to 112 and no one else does because they don't understand that the emotional content of human condition is the very anchor and the misdirection that creates the confusion. And when you are able to really understand that, and that you can resonate at that higher frequency of what we like to call within Taoism, just accepting and allowing all things.
Yes, absolutely.
Accepting and allowing all things. What does that mean? Well, there's that. And then the degree after that is gratitude, because gratitude, I could give you $5 or give you a compliment. You're going to feel grateful that happened. Whereas love, which seems to be the rhetoric and the repeatable sort of like hallmark version of reality, where love is subjective. So razor blades and bunny rabbits could be my idea of love, and unicorns and rainbows could be your idea of love. It's sort of like, how do you create that frequency? There's a default setting when you ascertain that high frequency where all this other stuff falls away, and you will literally be that replicable sort of like frequency of all things. And then that embodies in bliss, joy, happiness, love, all that kind of stuff. But as you ascend, there is this transformative movement that takes place where you're going through this car wash of reality to acquire that, unravel that, and that can be instantaneous, or it could take you a few minutes there to get into that, step and stride that makes it realize. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this is fascinating to me because what you just said. Maybe in 2010 or 12, I channeled a book and it was called the 4 passages of the heart, right? And the whole thing was, how do we open the heart, which is how do we open conscious. The heart is where the soul resides for humans. And it was, the first passage is pain. We have to like recognize and know that we are experiencing pain and suffering rather than blocking it. The second was pain, compassion for others. We look around and see that everyone is having problems, and we also have compassion for ourselves. The third was connection, which was this idea we finally get to oneness. We just finally understand we're inseparable and part of. And the third was love, which was basically enlightenment. And I just find it so interesting because what you just described is sort of the same chunking up of how do we just keep this opening. From different traditions come the same.
Oh yeah.
Like, just like, let's get this opened up and do it some more, and everyone do it together. And I also love this idea of the whiskey drinking. I think even if you have this higher level understanding, it does not mean like you're watching your Netflix, I'm watching my French murder mysteries, which I love. You know, like, we're not just floating around on clouds. I mean, that would be kind of fun, but like, we're living just nitty gritty lives. So, well, it's not one or the other. It's both together. You know, yes. It's the human self and the soul self coexisting fully.
And this is where I come to have your cake and eat it. And people are like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it. Yes.
Yeah. That's right. That's
1000%. I could have my cake and eat it. I can have my cake, eat it with 2 scoops of ice cream. Yeah. Because this is part of that, you know, as we talked about, the whiskey, you know, the whiskey drinking, cigarette smoking, you know, 112-year-old. I personally had an aunt that lived to 106, and she was born before World War II, and she lived to 106 with, you know, full-blown diabetes due to a bad decision she made within her eating. But because she had a different mindset, she had a very fulfilled life, and she didn't spend it crippled with sickness. It was on paper, hey, you have diabetes. I think you should be careful. But guess what? She lived a very fulfilled, absolutely immersed in what made her happy and joyful. And that was the secret that she acquired was, hey, I'm just happy. I'm in this present moment. And guess what? With that, so becomes this incredible phenomenon that people can't understand. It's like, well, how did she live so long? Because she got it. She got the present moment.
Her mind her mind was liberated, whether she would have said those words or not. You know, maybe she would have called it something different, but yeah. Well, this is very interesting. I should probably get ready to head out, but I think this is a fascinating.
You've fallen victim to the master of voided time and space, didn't you? Oh, no, here we go. I was like, oh, I got her already. I had no idea. Oh, look at this, 137. Very good. Yeah. Because this is like, in my opinion, effortless and timeless.
Oh, yeah.
The time we're spending. Yeah. And so I don't really equate it to 1.00 hours. And it was so easy that it was so enjoyable that we will have to do it again.
Yes, I'd love to. Well, it's kind of like also we have no argument with each other. We're exactly on the same page, and that's interesting and you know, not always available. So that's pretty interesting too.
Well,
so thank you to Lao Tzu to like hooking the thing up. So yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of people tend to look at, you know, they look at me and go, oh, God, here we go, a priest, no doubt. Oh, Taoism, oh, here we go. It sounds a little masculine to me. Well, you know, it's understanding that there's so much more. Like I had one person today had a little epiphany because, you know, within Taoism, we're very clear on referencing the Tao as the mother of all things. And people are like, what did you?
Oh, yeah.
What did you just say the mother of all things? Absolutely. That magnetic fluidity and the yin energy is is the ultimate. It's like you know, there are no coincidences within numerology. When you understand the highest number within Taoism is 9, it takes 9 months to create a human life force. And so, whoa, what does that even mean? And then within Taoism, we go even deeper to, hey, guess what? There's a creation of the cosmos that is all generated within a 9 sequence event. And all this stuff has taken place. And people are like, that just blew my mind.
And then you start to throw in astrology. So for me, almost all of my planets, like if you look at my chart, they're all in Aquarius. They're like all in Aquarius. So that's why I have no tradition. You know, I'm just floating around trying to figure things out, and then teaching what I discover, or not what I discover, what I understand. And then even right now, as we're talking, we're in this massive planetary shift. Everything's going into Aquarius. It's just fascinating how everything is all of the same. It's just interesting.
Refers to one of my favorite movies, Hair.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen Hair?
Hair the musical?
Yeah.
I know every song probably by heart.
The second you said that, it's like, and the moon, the 7 stars, and Jupiter. Well, that's like my all-time favorite.
When my parents, I lived in Europe a lot as a child, and we didn't get a lot of, I was young, but my parents had a cassette tape of Hair, the musical. And that was like the only thing. And then we also had, you're probably younger for this, but we also had Herb Alpert's Tijuana Brass. And so I had those two that I could play over and over and over. So I took
You can never get too much Hair. I love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. That and West Side Story, two of my favorite musicals. Oh, I'm sorry. I confess it's the third one. Les Miserables, another one that just stole my
so sad. So suffering. So much suffering.
A little suffering, but you always knew you came out the other side.
Right.
But the revolution, my friend, don't mess with the Frenchies. They're gonna take you down.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna play. It sounds sort of like revolutionary, almost to the very point of what's going on in today society. But anyway, that's another story. But it's sort of like Les Miserables and what's happening in Paris right now. Who knows? We're not seeing that much.
Yeah.
But it's almost like that revolution is happening again.
and in England, I mean, and in the US, it's and in many other countries where we don't get the news from. So we're just go back to Netflix. Yeah. So,
all right, my friend. Again, I want to thank you. One quick last thing. What is your definition of consciousness?
Awareness, expansion.
Love it.
So that's what I'd say. Oneness. That would be the better answer. Oneness. That's what I'll say. Yeah.
And before you go, I'm going to put all your socials under this podcast, but please offer to the audience what it is that you're doing right now. What are you offering to the world right now?
I teach many, many, many self-study courses in spiritual intuition. I also have groups that I work with in training, and I have lots of books. So that's all on the website. But the self-study courses, especially if you want to just hone in on one piece of this and get started, it's super affordable. So that would be good for people who want to get started.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. I want to thank Latsu. I want to thank the Tao. I want to thank you. And I want to thank the universe for creating a new friendship.
Yeah, great. That's good. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Ching, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.